Late for everything, my face to the cement, that's how I always seen it. I spent days faded and anemic. You can see it in my face, I ain't been eating, I'm just wasting away. Look like the way that River Phoenix went gon' end up my fate. And when they drag me out the gutter, mail the ashes to my mother. Twist a split a bone, finish my plate. Slip a fist up for my niggas in chains. My mental was caged. See, I ain't been to prison, but the feeling's the same. Share sentiment, winning if the pen hit the page. As of late, I've been watching every bitch of my space. Shit just looking different with age. Try and make some sense of all this shit in my brain. One foot stuck in a tar pit of my ways.
Hi everybody. Today I'd like to talk about Solace by Earl Sweatshirt. Originally this was going to be part of a larger video about experimental rap and kind of albums that I feel like are underappreciated in the kind of the modern landscape of experimental rap, but I feel like as I listened to Solace more, I remembered what this album meant to me, you know, and I think I have a lot more to say than just kind of a quick blurb about it. I think this album is so important, and I think this album is truly one of the best rap albums ever made, you know, especially considering how short it is. I know a lot of people, that's kind of what I was going to talk about in terms of experimentation, but I think, you know, this is an album that's hard to put down in words, but I think the best way to kind of describe it is that this album is just the sonification of despair, you know? It's putting a sound to a feeling that not many artists, I think, want to or can accurately do, you know? When I think of works that I think accurately kind of paint a picture of depression and despair and this just overwhelming sense of doom. You know, I think of A Crow Looked at Me by Mount Eerie. I think of Black Star by David Bowie. I think of maybe American Teenager, or was that the name of the album? The Ethel Cain album before her newest one. But those are just a few, and there's more obviously, but I think those are just for me, the ones that come to mind off the top of my head. And I think it's hard to make something so honest because vulnerability requires accountability, and I think that is what Solace is. You know, if I don't like shit, I don't go outside was Earl at his angriest, his most bitter, his most, you know, just reluctant to kind of acknowledge where he's at. I think this is his most accepting, you know, and I think you don't get some rap songs without this album existing, because this just requires a blunt acknowledging of the state of mind you were in, you know, and I think it does a masterful job at that. You know, this is an album that I've liked for a long time, but it wasn't until my father died and my own depression diagnosis that I was able to fully appreciate it, you know, in the same way that I wasn't fully able to appreciate Blonde until my first breakup, right? Like, this album, I don't know, it was this perfect replication of what I was feeling. Same with some rap songs, you know, it's why I love some rap songs so much, you know, and this album, because there's no better way to tell someone or to describe what depression feels like, I think, than showing them this, you know? And so really, I kind of just want to go through the album, you know, because I think this album does so much in such a short time frame, and I think it all just works so well, you know, especially the beginning of the album is probably one of my favorite moments, because I think it so accurately depicts depicts the trappings of depression and grief and this idea of just being stuck there and constantly returning, right? It opens with this almost muffled scream of someone saying, I've been here before. You know, it's haunting, truly, because like I said, it just sounds like someone who like wants to shout and scream for help but just can't. And that's real. You know, that's for so many people who suffer from depression. I think the desire for help but not being able to ask it's very brutal. You know, because you feel like you're so close, someone's so close but they're so far away at the same time. And it's quite brave of this album to choose to depict that, I think personally, you know. And then moving on from kind of that first part, we move into Earl's first kind of verse on this album, where he's kind of, you know, really just allowing us into the current state of where he's at, you know. And
these the times that I needed the most, 'cause I feel defeated and I buy nothing by myself.
I think this kind of next part of the song is kind of where we see really the most blunt description of Earl's mental state, kind of his drug usage, his emotional state, his mental state. And I think, me personally, I don't do drugs, but I think that's a part of the album that I can't really resonate with, you know. And I do think it's good that for other people who do kind of do drugs, that Earl has kind of painted this picture of what it must kind of feel like to have that be this primary escape from the world or whatever, you know. I think kind of the most important parts of this album are its kind of instrumental sections, because I think they display a level of imperfection and roughness and messiness. And I think, I keep saying it, but I think that's very, you know, informative to what it kind of feels like. Like there's no, like I think one of the things I was going to talk about in my experimental rap video was kind of how I think the kind of choppy, very loop heavy, very, you know, kind of not well mixed has kind of become an aesthetic. And I do think like some rap songs in this piece use that, not necessarily to, I think they'd use it stylistically, but I also think there's a kind of a narrative meaning following it. And I think kind of, you know, the moments where he has to play the piano and starts over, where he's trying to rap his verse but has to start over, it's really descriptive of like what it takes to kind of force yourself out of the rut of depression and stuff. Like it takes you this forever just to do anything, and even then you have to, when you mess up, you have to force yourself to keep going, you know. Even with this video, I've been putting it off just because I've been having a hard time, you know, mentally or whatever. But it kind of took that same, like, okay, I gotta restart. If I don't do this, I'm not gonna get it done, you know. Like when he did an interview about this album, his words were, Earl Sweatshirt's words were, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he was like, at my lowest point, I found something. And I think that's kind of what, I don't know, I feel like that's kind of what all people hope to have when they're at their worst, is to kind of see some glimmer. And I think that's kind of portrayed by the constant restarting, maybe the mixing. Like this album is not perfect, but fighting through any battle, especially one of the mind, is not going to be a perfect one where you are able to just so easily get yourself out of it. You know, it requires just living with the flaws of yourself, and, you know, and at least for Solace of its work, to just keep existing, you know. And I think for me personally, I feel like depression can be the weight of my flaws caving in on me. And so I think this album kind of sends this very strong message of, who cares about the flaws, you know, just keep going. If you have something to say or something to do, just keep going. And I think that's very very sick. You know, I have nothing but high praises for this album, so sorry if this video is not very descriptive, I suppose, but, you know, I really just want to talk about this work and how much it means, you know, because I think I think depression in rap is still something new. You know, I don't know. I think we're still kind of finding ways to talk about it. You know, I think, you know, for me, when I was in high school, a big song was The Phone Number, you know, the Suicide Hotline song from Logic. And I think the reason why that didn't really connect with me as much as Solace does is because, and I want to state, I do think that song had a different purpose than Solace. Like I said, I think Solace is trying to be the embodiment of a feeling as opposed to what the Phone Number song by Logic was trying to do. But that song felt very clean. It felt very polished, very perfected, felt very, you know, hey everybody. And I think that's what it was trying to do, to draw attention and say, hey, if you need help, get help, which is a wonderful message. But I do think, at least for me, it means more to have to be felt like, to feel like someone really sees it and understands it, you know? And I think that's why the last line of this album, if your soul's intact, please let me know, is so powerful, because kind of unlike Logic's, you know, call to action from people suffering with depression, this isn't just like, call this number for help. This is a very like, if you still manage to make it, just say something, because you don't know who else is barely hanging on to make it, you know, and sometimes all it takes for someone else to make it is seeing that somebody else has also kind of made it, you know.
If it's like that the whole time, it'll be alright. Staying up all night, but it's alright. I done stayed up the whole night, but it's alright. It's me and my nibbling conscience. Nigga, I'm fixing to give up. I've been alone for the longest. It's trouble the way that we jog, and nothing gon' save us or stop us. Me and my nibbling conscience. Nigga, I'm fixing to give up. I've been alone for the longest. Split. I ain't splitting no time soon. My brain split in two. It's raining a bit. I hope it's a monsoon. My face in the sink. I'm seeing my mom soon. I faded, I stink. I stay getting